We're halfway home on Betting Above the Rim college basketball today here on SportsGrid. I am Adam Kaufman, Tom Vecchio alongside. And look, I mean, obviously, I did my little rant to close out that last hour, and we bled it into the commercial break a little bit, about the sort of the shine of the Cinderellas versus the reality of dominance with top seeds. And Tom, I'll bring what you were just saying off the air to air. If we want to be more invested in these Cinderella teams as bettors or on our brackets or what have you, the schools need to be, right. Like the kids are laddering up and moving around, NIL, chasing the best deals, transfer portal, all of that. If the institutions, these smaller schools or lesser programs or however you want to define them without throwing shade and all of that, want to truly compete, then you got to pay. Like the boosters got to step up, the institutions, they got to step up more. It all comes down to the almighty dollar at this point in time.
It really does. And the way I want to approach this is like as much as we love Cinderellas, we love good storylines. Like at the end of the day, we want to make things actionable. And if that means we're not seeing as many smaller schools advance, like we need to know like where that leads us in the betting market. So I think that's a perfect segment. We can talk about dogs not covering, right? That's what the theme has been this year.
All right, well, let us bring on our next guest, who, of course, is, great entertainment, part of the college experience over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He's been on with us before, Ryan McIntyre, on Twitter at Moneyline_Mac. And as we were saying, year of the chalk. You, Ryan, you prefer to be something of a dog better, but as you were telling us before you came on, probably good you didn't lean that way this year.
Yeah. I think you got to adjust. I mean, I love taking the dogs as much as anybody. There's nothing better than pinpointing, watching a mid-major all year long and going, that's going to be the team that's going to pull off the 12-5, the 13-4, even the 14-3 upset. But it just hasn't happened this year. The only ones, and I think Tom was talking about it, was Colorado State, and they were favored. I guess McNeese got the one-game bump with Will Wade in that news when they upset Clemson, but right. The Dogs just have not been getting across the finish line. I think a lot, yes, people are pointing to the transfer portal NIL. I think another thing, and I'm interested to see how this goes moving forward, the added COVID year of eligibility is finally ending this year. Remember, the COVID year, they added another year to all those kids. So we've had teams at the high major level, Power 5 level, be older than they ever have been. And I think that their depth has just really worn down these mid-majors. So I think it comes a little bit back next year. But at the same time, I think that we will get less Cinderellas with the just the power swinging over to the high majors. But I think that is something to monitor. That extra COVID eligibility year is going away next year.
Certainly a good point. And as we turn to today's games, Florida, Texas Tech, 6.5 point spread, 156.5 total for this one. What are your thoughts on this? Because my prevailing center kind of thesis for this game is Texas Tech, if they're going to be in it, they're going to be in it early or not at all. I like them first half, but I still think Florida can cover the full game.
Yeah, I just said the dogs have not been covered, and then I'm going to take a dog in the first game. So I'm going to take Texas Tech here. I think that they can beat you in a bunch of different ways. And last Thursday night against Arkansas was the worst I've seen them play the entire year. This is a gritty bunch. They have gone. They've won at Houston when JT Toppin, their superstar lottery pick, got thrown out in the first 4 minutes, including and their coach at the same time. So this team is battle tested. I think we get the reputation that they're not a really explosive offensive team. That hasn't been them all year. So I think they can go blow for blow with Florida. But I also think they will try and slow down the game, unlike Maryland, I thought, who tried a little bit to play through Queen and Reese and their bigs. But I think that they can play through Williams, play through Toppin, drag it a little bit in the mud here with Florida, and put some pressure on the rim like UConn did. I think that this is actually going to be a really, really good game. And this is one of the benefits of a chalk madness is you get 8 out of the top 9 teams in the Elite Eight. So I think we're going to see some fire games here this weekend. I can't wait.
You know how this goes from a public perspective, and maybe even some of the sharps out there. If we just sort of lean into what we've seen so far in this tournament, and the chalk, the best teams being the best teams, all of that, you're going to get a lot of Florida Duke money line parlays today, which you can get in the vicinity of minus 120, minus 125. It's actually getting a little worse, the odds, because just as we've been talking here, Duke, who was a 6.5 point favorite, has climbed to 7.5. So people are certainly investing in the Blue Devils. You said you're going to take Texas Tech with the points, and I get it. Bank on the close game, all of that. But would you swing the other way and do the money line parlay where you like Florida, you're not worried about them covering the points, but you do like them to just ultimately maybe win a close game? Or do you have enough conviction in the Red Raiders to actually go out and win, in which case you're going to sprinkle that plus 220 money line?
I am going to sprinkle the money line. I think that they've been a giant killer all year and battle tested coming out of the Big 12. Florida, and this is going to be the second time we've seen Todd Golden on a quick turn. The first time I saw Todd Golden on a quick turn, 48 hours, I thought he was significantly outcoached by Dan Hurley in UConn. I think McCaslin can make some adjustments here, and I think that they'll be able to shoot the basketball a lot better than they did against Arkansas. I also think they might get Chance McMillan back, which would be a nice bump to make a couple shots here. So yeah, I'm gonna take Texas Tech in that 6.5, and I will sprinkle some on that plus 200 money line. I think I've gotten so many text messages that everybody's got this Duke Florida money line parlay geared up, ready to go. One of these is going down today. It's a matter of which one.
So talking about shooting the lights out, Alabama hitting a million threes before you know it. Is that what we should be expecting today? Because ultimately, I don't think Alabama wants to. We know they play super fast and like number one in the country in terms of pace, but I don't think Alabama wants to increase the variance and give more possessions to a Duke offense, which is absolutely amazing. So I actually lean on the under on this game, and I think Alabama has to at least know the situation and try and change things a little bit and try and slow things down just to prevent those extra chances going to Duke. What are your thoughts on this one? Because I like the under 172.5.
Yeah, so initially, I think I even tweeted out, I was like, oh, man, now Alabama's not going to make a shot on Saturday. But I think that's just a natural reaction when you watch a team make 25 threes. But I also think they can beat you in a lot of different ways. They pride themselves on either getting a layup or taking a three. BYU took away the rim. They didn't guard the three-point line for whatever reason. Duke will guard the three-point line, but I think that's also going to present opportunities for Alabama to get downhill, put pressure on the rim with Mark Sears and company. I'm really looking at how they're going to guard Cooper Flagg. I think that they do have enough guys, enough size athletes. Alabama gets this reputation that they don't play defense. I think that they just play a lot of possessions and their stats kind of get skewed that way, and they want to play a high up-tempo game. I think Alabama will run. I think that this is going to be another classic here. I'm going to bank on Alabama's experience here. Mark Sears, Grant Nelson, they've been in this game just last year, and Cliff Murray around the rim. I think this is a 1 to 2 possession game. I think that a lot of people are just banking on that they're not going to make shots, but they've been a resilient team all year, even if they don't make shots. So give me Alabama plus the number here. And I think that I'm interested to see Shire prepare for that style of play on short rest.
Okay. So look, Alabama had 117 points against BYU last time out. That's almost the full game total between Houston and Tennessee coming in at 123.5. So like we said, Alabama can score. That said, the total in that game is sitting at 173.5. Some people, Tom likes the under. Our first guest, Rob Donaldson, likes the under. Do you want to chase the points, or do you like a lower scoring game too?
I like the under in both games. I think that they're short turnarounds, tired legs. Scouting is as good as ever with these coaches. Top-notch coaching staffs here. So quick turn, tired legs. Tendencies are out there. I like the unders here. Yep.
All right, much more with Ryan McIntyre from the Sports Gambling Podcast Network when we come back.
Here's a tip. Let's say you bet big on a 4-game moneyline parlay. Your first 3 bets have hit, but you're a little nervous about the last game. Consider placing a separate bet against the team you have winning in your parlay. You're technically a winner either way. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
You studied the stats. You had the perfect bracket until your upsets turned into regrets. SportsGrid rides the highs and lows of every buzzer beater, bracket buster, and Cinderella story.
The Big Ten Freshman of the Year!
Our team brings you sharp insights, real-time reactions, and all the madness. Only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, we are back here. Ryan McIntyre joining us from the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, looking ahead to today and tomorrow in the Elite Eight. Again, just the best matchups we could possibly hope for, and I am here for it. Let's move to tomorrow here, Ryan. We've got Tennessee and Houston. We were just talking about this game off the air a little bit. Houston, a 3.5-point favorite in this matchup of 1 versus 2. There are a few of these 1 versus 2 here in the Elite Eight remaining. And the total in this one, as we've discussed throughout this show, is really what jumps out because it is so low. 123.5. People, unsurprisingly, are betting the over, sort of ignoring the fact that, you know, you've got two elite defensive teams that also offensively go at a snail's pace, both sitting in the vicinity of 350th in the nation overall in terms of tempo. How do you bet this one, be it side or total?
Yeah, first off, if you're soft, don't play in this game because this game is going to be a physical war. Two really, especially on a short turnaround like I talked about the other games. Less than 48 hours to play each other. You got veteran guards on one side. You got veteran coaches, Kelvin Sampson, Rick Barnes. I think that this game's going to be played in the mud. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious with the total being as low as it is. So if you like basketball in the 1980s and 1970s, this is your kind of game. But I think Houston has been fortunate to survive in advance. They got a tough draw getting Gonzaga as their 8th seed and then having to play a road game last night against Purdue here. But they've been battle tested all year. They went undefeated in the Big 12 on the road. They got 3 guys that make shots at a high clip, Cryer, Uzon, and Sharp. I think that they have a little bit more shot making in a game that shots aren't going to be made that much. I think both teams are very physical. I think that's a push. I think Kelvin Sampson is the better coach, more proven, and I trust him to get his team to make a couple more plays here on the short term. So I'll lay the number with Houston, and I'll take the under. So I think I'm looking at like a 55-50 game. They make their free throws. They're a good free throw shooting team. Houston gets across barely, but I like the under definitely in that game.
I love this type of game. Super slow, like super grinded out. This is like, I don't want to see games that end 85-80. That's not what I want to see. We were talking about this with our previous Rob. I think there's a real chance, and I want your thoughts on this. I got his thoughts as well. If Tennessee jumps out to an early lead, you can get Houston at -1, or if Houston jumps out to an early lead, you can get Tennessee at +8, and I think you can have both sides. Like Houston wins, they win by, you get the 1.5, -1.5 in game, and you also get Tennessee plus 8.5. I think that's a very realistic possibility. Is that something you do, or would you look to do in this type of game? Because I think that's what we're going to see. Last team to have the ball wins, but Houston still comes away with the cover of not 3.5, maybe 1 point.
Yeah, I definitely would think that. And I know a lot of people like to play the 1 to 10 win margin. This is definitely fits the profile of a game that you may want to look at that market. So especially if you like Tennessee, because Tennessee's not going to blow out Houston. I would be absolutely shocked if Houston blows out Tennessee as well. But I think a blowout in this game is 7-8 points. Like to your point, Tom, I think this game, there's just not going to be enough possessions really to warrant a blowout. They're going to have half as many possessions as that BYU Alabama game in this game here on Sunday.
Like you said, great coaching matchup with Barnes against Sampson. But the thing that people are, every coach, like every sport has this coach, right? Where we get to this time of the year and it's, man, I don't know, Rick Barnes with a chance to go to the Final Four. He hasn't been there since leading Texas in 2003. Is that real to you? Is the, Rick Barnes sort of, clenching his backside, if you will, at this stage of the tournament, a narrative that you buy into?
I think it's a little bit overrated now, to be honest, because at Texas they choked. They had a lot of really good teams. The Kevin Durant team, it just off the top of my head, and some of those other teams. But to put perspective on what he's been able to do at Tennessee, they had only been to one Elite Eight in the history of the program. They've gone to Elite Eight now back-to-back years with Rick Barnes, and they've been out of the first weekend 4 out of the last 6 years. So I think it is a little bit overblown, but at the same time, if you're making me choose between him and Kelvin Sampson, I'm taking my guy Kelvin Sampson. I love Kelvin Sampson teams. I know he's had his March heartaches. I mean, the Duke game last year was a brutal one with Shed going down, but I do trust him on a short turn a little bit more than Rick Barnes.
As we turn to the final game of the weekend, Michigan State versus Auburn, 5.5 point spread, 147.5 total. I don't really have a strong take when it comes to the side. Push comes to shove, I think I would take Michigan State, but I'm far more interested in the total, and that leans on the under 147.5. Do you have any, convictions about this game or just any overall thoughts?
Yeah, this is another game. If you're soft, don't play in this game either, because these two teams want to get up and down. This is going to be a physical game at the rim. I know people like to throw around the term violent collisions at the rim. I think we're going to see that. I think that Ole Miss, though, kind of exposed Sparty a little bit on Friday night. I know Sparty was able to grind that thing out with their depth here. But I think that Auburn's got a different level, a different dynamic than Ole Miss can present. And I think Ole Miss's athletes, Ole Miss's size, Auburn has all that, and they can score in transition better than Ole Miss. So I think that the Broom and Cardwell 1-2 punch in the front court is going to give Sparty some fits here, just because Sparty has more role players in the front. I also think that the Auburn guys are going to be able to go toe-for-toe with this veteran Michigan State group here. I think Auburn's able to keep Sparty off the glass. I think they can keep him a little bit in the half court out of transition. I like Auburn actually laying the points, and that game's a home game, man. If anybody watched that game the other night, that was like playing at the Jungle the other night.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask you. This game is taking place in Atlanta, State Farm Arena, less than 2 hours, about $1.45 away from Auburn, Alabama. So how does that factor into the handicap?
I think anybody that doesn't factor that in didn't watch the game against Michigan last night, because once that thing started spiraling, that crowd got into it. I felt like I was watching a game on Auburn's campus. So definitely, it's a true road game for Sparty tomorrow.
Ryan McIntyre, he's on Twitter at Moneyline_Mac, of course, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, friend of ours here at SportsGrid as well. Ryan, thanks so much, man. Good luck today.
Thank you.
Here's a tip. Let's say you bet big on a 4-game moneyline parlay. Your first 3 bets have hit, but you're a little nervous about the last game. Consider placing a separate bet against the team you have winning in your parlay. You're technically a winner either way. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
You studied the stats. You had the perfect bracket until your upsets turned into regrets. SportsGrid rides the highs and lows of every buzzer beater, bracket buster, and Cinderella story.
The Big Ten Freshman of the Year!
Our team brings you sharp insights, real-time reactions, and all the madness. Only on SportsGrid.
It's you guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Our thanks to the first couple guests we've had, most recently Ryan McIntyre. We are, of course, I mean, look, it's betting above the rim, college basketball today, and you can't have a betting above the rim without the lead sports basketball analyst here on the network, James Young. He's going to join us coming up in just a little bit. We'll hear from Kawhi, his impressions of what he has seen so far and what to expect here this weekend in the Elite Eight. We'll spend a little more time later on player props, give you our 3-man weave, get the producers involved as well, give you their favorite play. I'll give you one, best bets in general, in addition to obviously Tom's, and should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. What do you make of the line movement that has been sort of just jockeying a little bit, even as we've, since we've been on? We've seen Duke go from -6.5 to 7.5. Now it's back to 6.5. The money line has fluctuated a little bit, and I think it's there's a little push and pull when it comes to how to bet this game. This has been the only one that we have really seen any line movement with, at least during this first roughly hour and a half that we've been sitting here together.
Yeah, I think this comes down to people waking up from winning bets from last night and pouring it in on the favorite on Duke, where, that's what caused the line movement to jump up from 6.5 to 7. That's the point of resistance in the market. And, I would say the sharps are looking back Alabama at that point, grabbing 7.5 points, and then it drops back down to 6.5. I would be, cautious of some of these line moves. If it jumps back up to 7.5, I would certainly be looking to take Alabama at that point. But, if we see it get past 7.5, I don't know if it'll go to 8.5. I highly doubt that it will, but I wouldn't be looking to take Duke at 8.5, especially if there was a 6.5 early within that same day, not, let alone since the other night. So the line moves are important. And if you're going to be on, numbers early, not just for today, but as we approach the next round, like you want to be on, I would say, some of the favorites as early as possible, because getting a 3.5 number when it opens compared to getting a 5.5 number, 5.5 number in college basketball is so weird. We're talking about not just 2 possessions, really. It's more often 3 possessions to cover the 6 points. So if you can get a 3.5 early hypothetical line for next week, I would grab that as early as you possibly can. Do not be betting some of these lines, especially favorites, later, once these lines are posted for 48 plus hours.
It's interesting. Beyond the line movement, seeing the money line move around in that game. Duke, -285 right now on FanDuel. Yeah. It was all of 3 minutes ago -310. That's a significant movement. I realize there are not a lot of people out there that are interested or comfortable laying that amount of juice, but it is relevant to if you did that Florida Duke or Duke whoever else, if you don't believe in Florida, you want to put them with Houston, you want to put them with Auburn. If you're putting some sort of a little two-leg or even more than that money line parlay together, that's you're talking about a 25-cent movement there. That's going to move the juice around at least a little bit.
Yeah, going from what you said was, I'm seeing minus 124 now between Florida and Duke. And that's substantial if you guys were getting it at minus, 115 earlier, whatever it might have been. Or granted, if it was at minus 130, it moves to minus 124. So that is important to note. Maybe it's a part of the thing where people are, theoretically hedging out of any futures that they have to make the Final Four championship. They're looking to get different exposure to those. Like, do you have any futures on? You have a future on Duke, if I remember correctly, right? So maybe it's just a factor of people moving or hedging out of futures potentially, because this is the time to do it. A Final Four future and a championship future for a team like Duke, which I have to assume is very popular. There's going to be people moving, to Alabama just to get some action on the other side to secure a profit.
Yeah, I decided to take a leap of faith with those scrappy Blue Devils just to see if they were going to be decent here in the tournament. Turns out they're okay. But you know what? Honestly, like, mockery aside, we always talk about value in the number. Like, I got Duke, pre-tournament at, plus, 4 something anyway. And right now it's plus 170 looking at the FanDuel National Championship odds. So that's, fairly considerable movement for a team that I realized was a betting favorite going into the tourney, but it's still a much better number than exists right now. And you got Florida plus 320, and then you get to Auburn at 5-1, Houston 6-1, Bama at 13-1, Tennessee at 15-1 before you start to get into a pair of 24-1s in Michigan State and Texas Tech. Is there value in any of these numbers that you would be interested in investing in now?
Yeah, I said this the other day to Ben and Donnie on the early line. I think the play is still Alabama at 13-1 solely due to leverage. This is not saying like I believe they're going to beat Duke. They're like the best team. But if they do happen to beat Duke and theoretically Tennessee beats Houston, those two teams are lopped off in front of them, and you would have great closing line. That's simply just based on where the odds are. Not saying that I like them to beat Duke. I don't. But we just have to look at the odds and what they're presenting us.
All right, we have got the coach, JY, James Young, on the way next. Stay tuned.
Here's a tip. Let's say you bet big on a 4-game moneyline parlay. Your first 3 bets have hit, but you're a little nervous about the last game. Consider placing a separate bet against the team you have winning in your parlay. You're technically a winner either way. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
You studied the stats. You had the perfect bracket. Until your upsets turned into regrets. SportsGrid rides the highs and lows of every buzzer beater, bracket buster, and Cinderella story.
Queen at the buzzer, the Big Ten Freshman of the Year.
Our team brings you sharp insights, real-time reactions, and all the madness. Only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is Betting Above the Rim college basketball today here. The Elite Eight begins today. The best of the best. The chalk remains with Tom Vecchio, Adam Kaufman, and we bring in the lead basketball analyst, the host of the Betting Above the Rim podcast here with SportsGrid. That is, of course, the coach, James Young. Coach, how we doing, bud?
Sleep deprived, but I only got to deal with this. Let's see, 1, 2, 4 more nights. So it's good to be on with you guys. Good morning.
Great to have you here with us, obviously. And we've been talking a lot here on this show about the lack of Cinderellas versus the chalk. The Davids are gone. It's all about the Goliaths. I am for one, excited about it. I'm happy about it. I also think down the road it's a sign of things to come because of the transfer portal and the NIL, some stuff that you put out on social media in some of the areas that you've been talking about. But as we get down to it now, the 4 number 1s, the 3 number 2s, and the 1 lone 3 seed that remain, do you like this because it means you have the best competition against the best competition here for this final stretch of games?
Well, listen, AK, I think you're getting to a point now where we're not – the Cinderellas are going to be few and far between, right? At least the ones that have sustainable success, because if you have a Cinderella team, either your coach is getting poached or your players are getting poached. So either way, it's not going to happen. I think this has become an extremely exciting tournament. We didn't get, besides the Derek Queen game winner, with Maryland, we didn't get those buzz beaters. But we've gotten a lot closer games, different styles, right? And we'll have that today. But to me, I think it's great for what we have. It's not. It is chalk. It is chalk. Let's be honest. But when you look at the Ken Palm ratings, you have I think the 8 best teams in Ken Palm in the Elite Eight.
8 out of 9, yeah.
8 out of 9. That tells you where we are. And the top 4 teams with net ratings of 35 or higher, that's like a record. So to me, it's really going to be great basketball, and let's enjoy it while we do. The NIL, that's a whole nother issue. The transfer portal, I just saw that RJ Lewis, if you guys didn't see, is going pro. He's leaving St. John's. Not shocking after what happened last weekend. But I think college basketball is in good hands with this tournament. I think it's going to be an exciting finish.
Yeah, we like seeing Cinderellas, but my point is to an extent. You want to see the best basketball when it's all said and done, and that's what we have. As we turn to today's game, starting off with Texas Tech versus Florida, what's your thoughts on this one? Because I've said this for a couple hours at this point. My prevailing sentiment is that Texas Tech has to be in it early or they won't be in it at all. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, Texas Tech can't do what they did last game versus Arkansas. And I think that's a little bit of a credit to how Cal literally just mucks games up. He gets you to play this one-on-one style of basketball where there's terrible shot selection and coaching has very little to do with it. It comes down to who's got the better athletes, right? So I think Texas Tech is going to be in this game. I think they're getting very much disrespected with the 6.5-point number. When you talk about 6.5 points, guys, you got to start thinking that's a 3-possession game, right? So to me, I look at Texas Tech plus the 6.5. I will say this, and you make a good point, obviously, Tom. If you get a slow start from Texas Tech, particularly say how they were last game, down 8-10 at the break, don't go to the window and bet a comeback. That's not going to happen. They got to play with the lead, or they got to keep this as close to 2 possessions as long as possible to stay in this game.
No, I agree with you. If Texas Tech falls down by 10 early, that just tells me they're going to lose by 25. I would, at that point in time, I'm jumping on the Florida side. I almost don't care what the number is. So I'm with you. I think the Gators are a wagon. I think the Blue Devils are a wagon. We'll talk about Duke here coming up in a moment. But I think it's chalky. I get it. It's 2-1 seeds, but I felt this way in many ways going into the tournament. I think that we're just on this collision course. When you see teams win by 30, 35, 40 points in the opening round, even in their 116 matchups, generally that just tells you that, okay, this team is just better than most that are out there. And yeah, Florida got a bit of a scare against UConn, had to come back, win that thing, survive, quite frankly. But then you saw a great bounce back, obviously, against Maryland. And to your point, I just think, Texas Tech, while what it has done so far has been impressive, the level of competition generally isn't comparable to what they're going to see here for Florida on the other side. When we get to Duke, Alabama now, this is the later game tonight. You'll still be in bed before midnight, so don't worry. Won't be too late for you here. Not these, 10:30 starts Eastern time or anything like that. Is this game going to live up to the hype from a scoring perspective? Are we going to get another game that gives us 175 plus points?
Well, I won't be in bed, and then obviously, Ben and I will be doing game 2 tonight. Leave it to the NCAA to put the East Regional last, but the West Regional first. A 3 p.m. start and an almost 9 p.m. start. But then when you talk about Cooper Flag, you understand there's levels to this. And this is why the Duke game is the night game. And like I said, Ben and I will be on tonight. Joe and Kevin will be on for the first game. But when you look at this game, I'm going to pump my brakes on a couple of things. I don't think the overall points are going to be there. Now, that guy's points are going to be there, and that's Cooper Flag. 24.5 seems like an insane number. Here's my question to everyone. It's a game that Alabama plays no defense. Who the hell is guarding this kid? Like, who's guarding him? The amount of action they put him in. This is where I think Alabama gets himself into trouble because of this guy and his ability to create and score a 3-level score, right? In the post, pull-up game, deep 3, pick and roll. You can use him as a screener and pop him out. Great facilitator. Can get steals, get out of transition. Cooper does everything. My actually favorite play of the game is Cooper Flag over 24.5 points. I think he approaches 30, and that is going to go inside with the other side. If there's someone that's going to guard him, it's probably going to be Grant Nelson, and that's not good for Alabama. This is someone that can get into foul trouble, and then if you're Nate Oates, what do? Do you sit Grant Nelson in spots? Do you move Grant Nelson to the 5? That's where Duke can take advantage on the offensive boards. I also like Grant Nelson. I think it's 11.5, under 10.5, 11.5 point shot around. See if you can find that 11.5. But in regard to the game, I like Duke minus the points. I think this will be a pull away at some point, and I think it goes under. And here's why. As great as Duke is offensively, they're one of the slowest teams in the country. They're going to make them defend because Duke knows at any point they're going to get their shot off. And if you're a team like Alabama, the most frustrating thing to do as a game plan is to go try and score quick, 12, 14 seconds to get their offense quickly. You don't score, Duke can run it up, but then they can get to a half-court game, and their offensive flow and how many guys can score is too much. I think the game actually goes under the total.
I'm on board with the under, and I've been saying it the entire show. I think Alabama's, for as fast as they play, they're number 1 in the country in pace. They actually want to limit the possessions from Duke. Like, they don't want to give a great offense more chances to score and try and keep up with them. I don't think that's how Alabama keeps this close and/or wins. So I do like the under as well. Would this lead you to an Alabama team total that's sitting at 83.5? Would you be interested in that under if you think Duke, because their defense is amazing? Do you think they keep Alabama in check?
Yeah, I think their defense is amazing. I think the only and here's the thing. Not only is their defense amazing, Tom, and if you people want to take, if they'd rather just go one side, like whether you don't want to take a full total, take a team, take the team total under 83.5. That's a great point because Duke is going to slow that game down, and they're going to make you defend. And they have equal defenders. Brown is back, Flag is back, obviously. 2 best perimeter defenders. And here's the thing, guys, and I've seen this all the time as a coach. When you go 50% from 3, the next game, them shots do not fall. They go under 83.5.
Listen, I stand by what I said earlier. I know Coach is going to be on tonight with Ben. I said bedtime by midnight. He could be off the air by about 11, get home, sneak into bed. We need Vegas odds for Coach's bedtime tonight. Do we have a graphic for that? That's what I want to know.
1
We've covered one half. 1 a.m. All right. I'm going to text you at 12:30 and see if you're still awake. We have done half the Elite Eight. We'll get to the other half with JY on the other side.
Here's a tip. Let's say you bet big on a 4-game moneyline parlay. Your first 3 bets have hit, but you're a little nervous about the last game. Consider placing a separate bet against the team you have winning in your parlay. You're technically a winner either way. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
You studied the stats. You had the perfect bracket until your upsets turned into regrets. SportsGrid rides the highs and lows of every buzzer beater, bracket buster, and Cinderella story.
The Big Ten Freshman of the Year!
Our team brings you sharp insights, real-time reactions, and all the madness. Only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We have Coach James Young with us. He is on Twitter at CoachYoungNJ, and of course, chatting about all things college basketball. Coach here in the Elite Eight. Already talking a little Texas Tech, Florida, although not as much with the injuries in that game. Alabama and Duke. Now let's make the move to tomorrow a little. You know, you like the under in the high-scoring expectation that is surrounding Duke and Bama, but could I talk you into an under 123.5 between Tennessee and Houston?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, listen, buckle up, folks. Listen, enjoy all the offense you can out of Duke and Alabama, because this next game, it ain't happening. I mean, if you look at the style of play of both of these teams, neither team overly deep, half-court basketball, and no one is better than Kelvin Sampson to get you to play at his pace. Not only is he one of the slowest teams on offense, he's one of the slowest teams on defense. And Rick Barnes is going to follow suit. This is such an intriguing game because you have two coaches that have coached a long time that neither one of them has won a national championship. You would argue, I would say these two and Mark Few are probably the 3 best coaches currently that haven't won a national championship. So this is a big spot here. I think the game goes under. I know people are looking at that 4.5 and saying, it's 2 possessions. It's big. I think Houston wins and covers. I think playing that game against Purdue last night in front of that really home crowd for Purdue, they'll be okay. I'll lay the 4.5 because of the fact that I think the bigs in Francis and Roberts are better than Tennessee's bigs. I just think that there's a little bit more firepower with Houston, and I don't think LJ Cryer is going to give you a stinker like he did last night.
I love this game. I can't. It's first team to 60. Like, this is what I want to see at this point in the season. I don't want to see games ending 85-80. I want to see 60 to 57, somewhere around there. I do lean on Houston as well. The under 123.5 looks super interesting, considering that they play so slow. Michigan State Auburn. This is, I think, the game that people probably having the most difficulty with. We see the stat that Tom Izzo is 10-0 against SEC teams in the tournament. Is that something that you buy into? And what are your thoughts on this one? Because I almost want to say taking the points with Michigan State is the way to go, but I still think Auburn wins.
I faded Michigan State the last 2 games. I got lucky. I covered by the hook. Thank God for, that last second shot. But to me, there's no better coach. And now people are like, hey, he won it in 2000. I don't care. There's no better coach than you have to deal with in a one-day prep than Tom Izzo. He will have some things up his sleeve, and they're not going to all come out right away. He's not going to let Jedi Broom beat him. I'll tell you that right now. Tom Izzo will go to his deathbed before he lets Jedi Broom get 20, 25 points. So that ain't happening. I think Michigan State, I have to jump on him here because I think he's the best. I think, like I said, Jedi Broom under 20.5. I think that Michigan State keeps it close. And I think I'll take the points. But if this is a 2-point game, last 2 minutes, I'm jumping on the money line with Michigan State, provided that they're either down 2 with the ball, tied, or up. Well, I'm not up 2. Down 2 with the ball or tied. I'm going to take Michigan State the last 2 minutes because there's no one better out of a timeout and late game situations than Tom Izzo. He literally spends, I think, 20 or 30 minutes a day on late game situations. So his kids are like programmed on what to do. If it's close last 2 minutes, I'm going to jump on Michigan State on the money line.
Okay.
Coach, I do need to mix in something that is not related to the Elite Eight, much as I did believe that St. John's was still going to be alive at this point in time. On my bracket, I had that team in the championship round falling to Duke, so how wrong was I? St. John's went down to Arkansas, and now R.J. Lewis wants out. He is reportedly declared not only for the NBA draft, but also is entering the transfer portal. So no matter what, he's not necessarily going to the NBA, but he's not going to be back with Rick Pitino next year. What do you make of this, the Big East Player of the Year deciding he is out?
I'm not shocked. It just looked kind of weird, the whole situation, even though I had a different take in regards to how it went down. With the 2 players that they got in the portal, and Bryce Hopkins from Providence is on his way, is actually, I think, on the visit right now at St. John's. Someone was getting squeezed out. And I could sense when Ejiofor came back, maybe RJ was gone. I also think he's striking while the iron's hot. And he's going to have people not look at the 3 for 17, but look at the fact that he was the best player in the Big East. And although Cooper Flagg's going into this draft, next year's draft is supposed to be a lot deeper. So it may be better for him to get out now while the iron's hot than wait and run it back next year with Rick Pitino knowing that he needs better guards to shoot the ball. So he's going to get more guards out of the portal. Smart move by RJ. Maybe he goes into the portal and goes somewhere else. But good year for him. I'm like you. I thought they were going to be playing now. But obviously, this is what's great about March is you just got to be the better team for 40 minutes. And if you do it 6 straight times, you win a national championship.
So outside of that, are there any other players that you're expecting to enter the transfer portal or other teams that you're keeping an eye on? Or like you said, we have Cinderellas, as you mentioned, like those coaches are going to be poached because they did so well. Is there a team or coach you're keeping an eye on?
Well, we just got to watch what happens with Kevin Willard. I think the more interesting one, Tom, is going to be the women's side because the WNBA doesn't pay as well as the NIL. You saw Paige Becker's come back, but AZ Fudd's leaving. Look out for even someone like Olivia Miles, who could be a top 5 pick, but may transfer or stay at Notre Dame because more money than WNBA.
James Young, of course, Coach Young NJ on Twitter, lead basketball analyst here at SportsGrid, host of the Betting Above the Rim podcast as well. And he's in for a late night ahead with Ben Stevens. Check him out on the SportsGrid network following all things CBB. Thanks, Coach.
Here's a tip. Let's say you bet big on a 4-game moneyline parlay. Your first 3 bets have hit, but you're a little nervous about the last game. Consider placing a separate bet against the team you have winning in your parlay. You're technically a winner either way. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
You studied the stats. You had the perfect bracket until your upsets turned into regrets. SportsGrid rides the highs and lows of every buzzer beater, bracket buster, and Cinderella story.
The Big Ten Freshman of the Year!
Our team brings you sharp insights, real-time reactions, and all the madness. Only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
A lot of great stuff from our guests here on Betting Above the Rim College Basketball today. Obviously, our thanks to Rob Donaldson, to Ryan McIntyre, most recently, our guy, Coach James Young. And I do feel like, Tom, there have been some levels of consensus throughout this show with respect to some of these bets, like universally the under in Alabama Duke. I think there's a lot of belief in Duke winning this game, maybe not covering the spread, but definitely winning anyway. A little pushback, I think, from the Florida Texas Tech. It's sort of a split grouping as to which side you take the points with. Might be a little bit more in favor of Texas Tech with the points, even though I am on the Florida side. With the games tomorrow, it's a lot of love for Houston, it feels like, or pardon me, for, Houston as well, but for Auburn is what I meant to say. For Auburn, with this, not necessarily with the points, but just winning. Again, sort of thinking a money line parlay type of situation. Home court advantage there in Atlanta. Leave it to Sparty and Izzo to keep it close. And also, don't be scared off of the under 123.5 in that Tennessee-Houston game. Anything else in a grander scale other than overs for Cooper Flagg that you took from that conversation?
No, it's good that a lot of people are on the same page where, expect maybe some regression from Alabama shooting, not going to be as much. Teams are going to play things a bit tighter. Ryan was mentioning it's a quick turnaround, some tired legs, et cetera, et cetera. I think, encouraged that a lot of people are on the same page with me about Texas Tech, that they're going to cover early, but they're going to end up losing the game just because Florida is an amazing team. So I'm encouraged that maybe it's just a confirmation bias, right? That all the thoughts that I had were confirmed by everyone that we brought on, very sharp people. So that's at least that's good now at 11:56 in the morning before the game start.
Let's get to our three-man weave. That looks nice right there. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a prop that I like. Tom will do the same. We'll get one from our producers as well. And if you're in a state that allows it, by all means, invest in the straights, parlay them together, make some money however you can. Tom, why don't you start?
Yeah, let's start off with Duke. I said I like the under in this game overall. I think Cooper Flagg can do a lot of that scoring. Let's actually turn to Con Knippel under 16.5 points. It was sitting on minus 128, minus 125. So far in the tournament, he was shooting 64.7% from the field and 55.6% from downtown. Those are vastly better numbers compared to what he did during the regular season, shooting 48 and 39%. Like, don't be bamboozled by the fact that he's on fire right now. I do not expect that to continue in a game that has this level of importance, especially when I'm expecting the under to hit in the game overall. So under 16.5 points, when push comes to shove, the ball will be going to Cooper Flagg when Duke needs the scoring. And seeing him push to essentially the upper teens or theoretically the low 20s, he's not going to shoot 55% from downtown. He's just due for so much regression. I'll take Con Knippel under 16.5 points.
Our producers, you were just looking at it, gave you 20-plus points out of JT Toppin there for Texas Tech. He had 24 and 25 in a couple of looking back late in the regular season, had a 30, a 25, a 26 there in some, important games, including obviously the 26 opposite Baylor in the quarterfinals of the Big 12 championship. Here in the tourney, he has gone for 20 and 25 respectively in his last two against Arkansas and Drake. Certainly a guy who the shot volume is there for me. And unfortunately, I'm going to give you something different that's on the screen there. As much as I do like Clayton, I'm going to stick with Texas Tech, and I'm going to give you the over 15.5 points for the junior forward Darian Williams there for Texas Tech. I do like Florida to win this game ultimately, and I would take the 6.5 points comfortably. I think the Gators take care of business, but absent Chance McMillan, if he does not play, and it doesn't look like he's going to, and maybe I sing a different tune for you if he is ruled in. He's questionable technically, but if he does not play, that much more of a workload, obviously, not only for Toppin, but obviously in this situation for Darian Williams, who over the last two games, 20 and 28, again, 15.5 is the prop. But here's the thing that actually jumps out. It is the volume. 8 of 26 most recently, 11 of 18 the game before that. Even when he went for 13 in the game prior, 5 of 15, but he went 0 for 4 from 3 and 3 of 5 from free throw range. If he had hit even a few of those, 1-3, couple of free throws in a bucket, whatever, he gets himself to the 15.5. Want to thank everybody behind the scenes. Obviously, a great help. Chris, Patrick, AJ, everyone. Obviously, for Tom, I am Adam.
Here's a tip. Let's say you bet big on a 4-game moneyline parlay. Your first 3 bets have hit, but you're a little nervous about the last game. Consider placing a separate bet against the team you have winning in your parlay. You're technically a winner either way. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
You studied the stats. You had the perfect bracket. Until your upsets turned into regrets. SportsGrid rides the highs and lows of every buzzer beater, bracket buster, and Cinderella story.
The Big Ten Freshman of the Year!
Our team brings you sharp insights, real-time reactions, and all the madness. Only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.